Krishna. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, and welcome to today's session. How are you doing? I pray that all is well with you and your families at this time. So how are you doing? I pray that circumstances and events are getting easier on you. As much as we're getting good news that there's many countries that are receiving vaccines and there's an improvement in the health of the whole world due to this virus, it's also left emotional scars on us for those that have passed on. Those were friends, colleagues, relatives, spouses, wives, husbands, and those are not so easy to deal with. We are sharing on these videos that we are offering a shoulder of empathy, of sympathy, of emotional support to everyone. And we can see that it's not always so easy just to forget, right? It's not so easy just to forget a loved one because the person has been so integral to our lives. But what we're seeing with Arjuna and the way Krishna is relating to him, that how do we make the choices now to move on with our own lives? Because our life is also a process that has to be completed. And if we don't consider the proper choices, then how do we carry on with the process of life? So in order to understand what is choices and what is the best choice to make, we need some kind of a philosophy, some kind of a practice or a teaching that can give us the bigger picture, that can help us see things from a higher level of consciousness, from a higher dimension, from the spiritual reality. And when we see from there, then we are getting the vision to see a greater part of reality, which we most probably will miss at the bodily level. So we have to start somewhere on our personal journey so that we can also make sense of life. Because right now, the way life is being thrown to us, at the pace and the speed and the rate it has been thrown to us, it's not so easy to cope with it. It's making us aware of elements that are really beyond our control, and that naturally creates fear. But the strength that we're getting is from the teachings of Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, where he's guiding Arjuna to assess all of this and see it for what it is, not for greater than it is. If we have that empowerment, if we have that level of understanding, then gradually our lives become a little more manageable. We can understand what is going on, we can make sense of it, and we can now do things to help ourselves improve from the situation that we are in. So in today's verse, it's one of the most famous verses of the Gita. It's the verse that describes how the body changes like changing clothes. So it's very famous. Vasamsi jirani yata vihaya. So let's take a look at it. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text number 22. Vasamsi jirani yata vihaya navani grinati naroparani tata sharirani vihaya jirani Anyani samyati navani dehi. Translation: as a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. So this is the famous verse that Bhagavad Gita is also known for, the changing body verse, where Krishna is using the analogy of clothes, and he's explaining to Arjuna that when you give up an old garment, an old shirt or an old dress because it's damaged and withered and torn, then do you lament for that? And he says, you don't lament for that. You know that it is an external thing. So why now are you relating to the body as if it's you? We see repeatedly Krishna is telling Arjuna he's not the body. We've been describing it's the person who is the soul. It's not the body. The body constantly changes. And this verse is stemming from the 13th verse. Dehino sminyata dehin komaram yovanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namoyate. This dhira, the person we will constantly be talking about, how does he see? He sees that the body is changing from boyhood to youth to old age. And eventually after old age it will drop and the soul will change over into another body. So in that verse, Krishna was just making Arjuna aware of it. In today's verse, he's going to describe the process of how that happens. How does the soul transmigrate or reincarnate into another body? You remember, we are always reincarnating. Every moment the body is changing, which means every moment we are reincarnating. But death is a changeover from this particular body into another new body. Technically, that changeover is not reincarnation, it's transmigration. Reincarnation is happening to us at every moment. And we describe that time is measured in one moment. The smallest aspect of time is one moment. So every moment the body is reincarnating. But transmigration is when the soul is changing from this body into a completely new, different body. When that happens, that needs some mechanism to do that transportation. How does that work? How does that soul then move out of this body into another brand new body? How does that work? What is the mechanism of that? That is going to be described in today's verse.
The soul's journey to the next body. When the soul sets off on its journey to the next body, it is given a transitional body that is grosser than the subtle body and subtler than the gross body. Equipped with this body that the Vedic literature calls preta, the soul is taken by nature's arrangement to its next destination. The soul often finds this journey painful because in its present condition it is highly susceptible to pain. To help ease the soul's pain, the Vedic literatures, like the Garuda Purana, recommend that the relatives of the deceased person perform certain activities whose merit cushions the soul's onward journey.
So Krishna is explaining to Arjuna that your body is like a biological garment. It's something you're wearing. It's a human suit. It's something that grows, develops, changes every moment. But you are simply wearing it, you're living within it. So now to think that that is you is a misunderstanding. That's an illusion. And Krishna repeatedly has made this point to Arjuna that the person is the soul. It's the body that has been changing all the while. It's the body, it's the consciousness that comes up from the soul through the body that you've been relating to as your loved one. Once you understand that through wisdom, then you can understand, okay, the person that I actually loved, the person that I actually cared for is still existing in some paradigm different from the human experience now. But the person is still existing. So my loved one hasn't died. So what has died at the moment, or what has changed, what has died, is the covering, the body. And that is described by Krishna as a garment. Why? Because it doesn't have any value anymore. It's not livable anymore. It has become diseased, or just like in the understanding of clothes, it has undergone wear and tear. So now it has become damaged. So it's not valuable to me anymore. I can't make use of it anymore.
The soul's entry into the next body. Srimad Bhagavatam 3.31.1, a classic of the Vedic library, outlines one of the typical pathways by which the soul enters the body. The soul is made to enter into the womb of a woman through the particle of male semen to assume a particular type of body. What determines our next body? Which body a particular soul gets is determined by the broad principles that underlie the mechanism of reincarnation. This soul, after having thrown away the old and useless body, makes unto himself newer and hopefully better bodies according to his previous actions, ability, and desires. The Bhagavad Gita 15.8 offers another metaphor to explain how the soul finds its next destination. Just as the air carries aromas, the soul carries its different conceptions of life from one body to another. And as we've already heard from the Bhagavad Gita 2.22, the body is like a piece of clothing for the soul. Reincarnation is therefore something like taking off an old suit and putting on a new one. Just as what suit we wear is usually determined by our taste and our budget, the soul's new suit is determined by its desires, its attachments, and the karma it has acquired.
Just like that, the body comes under birth, disease, old age, and death. These are the 4 problems of life, and everything else is a symptom of those problems. So, disease is one of it. And now, due to coronavirus, one of our loved ones or somebody that we know has come under the influence of disease. And due to that, their body is not livable anymore. But they're still existing. They are still very well and fine. It's just that we can't relate to them because they're not in the human feature anymore. They're not relating in the human suit. They're not wearing the human suit anymore. They are not within the human body anymore. So because of that, we can't relate. So what does that mean? That means our consciousness is still only on the human level. So how do we understand higher? By raising our consciousness. So that's what Krishna is trying to make Arjuna aware of.
So, this is the position. Without Guru, if he is manufacturing his way of life, then he is mura, rascal. Therefore it is said, mura. He does not say, does not know that behind me the death is awaiting. He has come to take me. Now, how your affection for your so-called son and society and family and nation will save you. Here is death. That he cannot. He cannot answer. The death is there. So we shall be prepared. That is human life. We must always know that there is death behind me. At any moment he can capture my neck and take it. That's a fact. Is there any guarantee that you shall live 100 years? No. Even just after a few seconds, if you go to the street, you may immediately be dead. There may be heart failure, there may be motor accident, there may be something. So, to live is wonderful. To die is not wonderful. Because you are meant for death. As soon as you took your birth, immediately you begin to die. Immediately. If you inquire, when the child is born, you say 1 week. That means he has died 1 week. We are taking that he is living 1 week, but actually he has died 1 week. That is wonderful. That is still he is living, he has not died. So, death is not wonderful, because it is sure, it will come after 1 week or after 100 years. That is not wonderful. So long you live, that is wonderful. So we should utilize this time to make solution of the life that we are repeatedly dying and again accepting another body. So how they will understand unless they come to the proper Guru? Therefore Shastra said, Tadvijnanartham, if you want to know the real problem of your life and if you want to be enlightened, how to become Krishna conscious, how to become eternal, go back to home, back to Godhead, then you must approach the Guru.
So actually under analysis we see that we have 3 separate bodies. 3 bodies, not 1 body. We have 3 separate bodies. We have the gross physical body, we have the subtle body made up of the mind, intelligence and false ego, and we have the spiritual body, which we don't have any connection to right now because that only functions in the spiritual paradigm. And we are connected on the material paradigm. So that body is just latent. Unless we do spiritual activity, and the foundational feeling of that is fulfillment and satisfaction. That's why we see as the progress of the dhira, the one who's endeavoring on spiritual practices and sadhana to connect to the spiritual dimension, that person is actually then connecting to their spiritual nature, to their spiritual body, is awakening their spiritual body. So Krishna is described in Gita, Bhumi aponalavayu kamano buddhirevacha ahamkar vimudatma bhinnam prakriti ashtata. So he's saying Bhumi, Apo, Nalo, Vayu, earth, water, fire, air and ether. These are made up of the physical realm. This is the gross realm. And this is where the senses connect to all the outside features and connect to the mind. And the mind then filters out under the influence of the intelligence what is valuable, what is most self-serving to the body. If we look at our bodies, we want to find the kutastha, that which is steady. What is it about us that is existing despite all the different experiences we have as a human? When we sleep, we have different experiences of life. So which part of that does not change, is steady? Kutastha, which part of that is steady? So if we assess, is our senses steady? We see no, because that part changes also. Sometimes they're defective. We don't have a limb, we don't have an eye, we don't have an ear, we don't hear properly, or there's some defect with some part of the body. But are we still existing? Yes, we're still existing. So we can't be on the level of the senses. So immediately we can assess that can't be us. Okay, what if we are from the level of the mind? So we see the mind also changes. Even as our mind and intelligence, we don't remember when we were 2 years old. We don't remember when we were 1 year old. But where we are existing, yes, the fact that I'm here now means I passed that stage. So I was still existing. I was still kutastha. And when we sleep, the mind sometimes switches off, even when we awake. Sometimes you're not too sure, you just got to check again. Haribol, you're listening to me. So we're not too sure. So we see sometimes the mind switches on, switches off. But are we existing at that time? Yes, we still kutastha. Okay, so we can't be the mind. What about the intelligence? We see the intelligence is good. It's a discrimination tool. It's used to discriminate right, wrong, what is good, what is bad. So it's dualistic. It works with the dual mechanism. What is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong. So being dual means it's still part of this material nature. And we see sometimes it gets bewildered. It doesn't always make the right choice. But are we still existing kutastha? Yes, we still kutastha. We're still steady. We're still existing. So we're not the external senses. We're not the mind. We're not the intelligence. What about our ego? Are we our ego? Well, if you note, Srila Prabhupada writes it as false ego. Because our ego now, our identification can change. And if we have an accident and amnesia happens, forgetfulness, we can completely forget who we are. But are we still steady, kutastha? Are we still existing? Yes. So that means there's a deeper reality than even the identity. So we've passed those levels. So where are we then? So this kutastha then, the steady aspect of who we are, must be existing from the spiritual dimension. So in this way, if we assess up, we can gradually come to see that where am I actually situated? The person that I'm calling I, the person that I'm identifying as I, is actually only on the spiritual platform. Every other part of me changes. Every other part of me is relative. It only has meaning and value in a certain circumstance. But the kutastha, the soul, the steady, that is existing as the foundation of all of these things. So if we assess life like this, you can see that I am existing beyond the changes of the body. Therefore, if the body is an outer garment, like a dress, so then when I'm giving up this old one to get a new one, what am I lamenting about? I'm getting something new. I'm getting a new body, not just a new model or a new version. 2021 model, Toyota Corolla, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, 2021 model means it's still under time factor. But what is steady, Kutastha, is beyond this model, beyond this version. It is a platform of the soul. It is on the platform of steadiness.